Committee to order. The time is 6:32. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Storr, Esri,
Here.
Hurtado, King,
Here.
Patterson, Paul,
Here.
Thorsland.
Here. All right, thank you. We have a quorum, and Kyle indicates that he is on the way. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda and addendum. Aaron and Mary, thank you very much. All those in favor? Well? Aye. Okay, yeah, we're not going to make any changes. I have one ticket for public participation. Anthony, oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. We got to do the minutes. We have the October 6th minutes of the regular meeting before us. I'd first entertain a motion to approve. Jacob? Mary, second again? We'll get you next time, Mary. Is there any additions, corrections, or changes that anyone has noticed? I always look to Chris because, well, but we enjoy that. Hang on. Yeah, use your microphone, Chris.
Hi, there's a, in the minutes, there's a spelling mistake on page 3. All the way down, third paragraph from the bottom, regardless, there is a violation, should probably be if. I'm sorry, I meant to call ahead.
Great, is that all? Okay, with that revision, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, now, Anthony, Brillo, the floor is yours. There's a little face on the microphone. Just push it till it lights up red like this one.
I was here tonight to mainly attend in case there are any questions related to the agenda items 10A, 10B, and 10C. I'm happy to talk about them, kind of give a quick rundown if the committee would like. Otherwise, I can just be here in case there are questions when those agenda items arise.
If you want to give us the 3-minute synopsis now, that'll be great. And then, yes, please do stick around so that we can question you later.
Perfect.
And let the record show that Mr. Patterson has arrived.
All right, I'll start with 10A. That's zoning case 062. For the zoning map change, the primary reason for that is to allow the special use for the PV solar array, which I believe we've met all of the requirements for that. B064, the waivers, we now do have a decommissioning plan, which is attached. The Part B, a waiver for locating less than 1/2 mile from an incorporated municipality. We've worked quite closely with the Village of Rantoul on this, and they are in support of the project. I believe we submitted a letter from them saying so. Part C, a waiver for being 235 feet from a non-participating dwelling. The dwelling in question is actually getting torn down by the landowner. The tenant, he's doesn't actually live there anymore. I actually had quite a hard time getting a hold of him because I didn't realize he had moved out. Additionally, I do have a letter from him, and that's Mr. Slinsker. Again, confirming that he spoke with me, he looked at the site plan, and did not have a reason to have issue with us building the array. A waiver for the separation distance of 165 feet instead of 275 feet. We put it nearby a newly designed property line. The former landowners that we actually bought this land from, they were aware of the project from the get-go. It's a commercial property, commercially used property currently, and again, they've been aware of the project. They sold us the land with that purpose, and we wanted to try to keep all equipment near the traffic area currently. And decommissioning plan and site reclamation plan. Again, you guys have that at this point. There were some issues and questions with costs, and we revisited it and dug in a little bit deeper as well. Met with recycling company here in Urbana regarding cost estimates for material as it's salvaged. And again, I included a letter from them just indicating that we spoke. So, and you guys also have the noise analysis for the data center and the solar array. So, I think that's basically it. The goal is to build a solar array that is approximately 12 to 13 acres on this parcel to be used in conjunction with a data center, so the data center can use the power that the solar array is producing. So that's that.
All right, thank you, and stick around, I'm sure you will. Okay, is there any other public participation tonight? No words about cilantro or anything. Okay, very good. With that, we move on to communications. Chris, you said you had something for communications.
Thank you. Later this month, on November 15th, or about that time, there'll be a media day to talk about the helicopter transient electromagnetic airborne geophysics that'll be conducted over Champaign County to much of Champaign County to do measurements and collect data for Muhammad Aquifer. The helicopter will be flying low over the land during the daytime. It'll have two circular arrays of antennas, and it'll look kind of a peculiar thing. Just want to kind of alert people that this is coming so that they don't become alarmed. There's no hazard from the pulses of that are used for collecting the data. And but they'll be like emergency management agency, sheriff, state police, and other agents, city of Urbana and Champaign police, all that. They're taking precautions to alert as many agencies as they can think of to do that.
Thank you, Chris. I wanted to call attention to something. This is the last meeting we'll have in 2022, the ELOT. And this is the last time you'll see the board looking like this. I want to thank two members that won't be with us because they're not running for re-election, and that is Mary King and Jacob Paul. I want to thank Mary for bringing all her concise wit, her experience as a farm family member. She brought a lot to the table, and you will be sorely missed. And Jacob, you have a very unique voice from my old district. So very happy, very pleased you were here with the board. Your input was always appreciated, and you bring a different perspective, one that I think is going to be missed on this too. So thank you both for serving and putting up with my poor chairmanship and working us through a lot of big cases that we've done in the past couple of years. So you'll be missed. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. Item number 7, this is for information only. It's the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Notice of Application for Renewal for Federally Enforceable State Operating Permit. I won't read the rest. I'll let John give us a brief update if there's anything to tell us about. Again, this is for information only.
Yeah, no, this is for information only. I haven't done any digging into this. I'm not aware of any complaints. And again, this is just for board members' information in case you want to do your own follow-up, or if you have questions, I can pursue it after the meeting.
I just make the comment that ultimately guess I'm glad that we're getting this. I mean, they're still out there in business, and I'm not sure how many they employ, but still, it's a business in the community, in the county, and employing people, and they're still obviously looking to go another year. I mean, I don't know how old Clifford Jacobs is. I know it's not a brand new company by any means. It's relatively old, but it's just nice to see that they're still going. I mean, they haven't or aren't going to just close up, which seems like it could happen pretty easily in today's environment. So that's all.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Any other questions? Anything you want John to look into further, other than they're clearly going to stay open? All right, very good. Item number 8, new business. This is to be placed on file by ELOC for the 30-day review period. This is zoning case 58AT22, the omnibus text amendment to amend the Champaign zoning ordinance to update material management, solid waste-related uses as described generally in the legal advertisement. Has there been any change since the last time we looked at this, John?
There have been 2 changes regarding the minimum separation for construction and demolition debris recycling facility. When the committee reviewed this previously, it was a 650-foot separation, and that was based on what Will County had adopted. Once Susan Monte got off the project, we started researching. We found out that the state, unless a local municipality requires less, the state requires a quarter mile. And we've had a use like this at the ZBA in one instance, and noise was one of the main complaints. And we recommended that the ZBA increase the separation to 1,320 feet. That is on page 16 of the agenda. It's item 4, standard condition 4. A CDDR facility must be located at least 1,320 feet from any residential zoning district or any dwelling. I predict that even at a quarter mile, you could hear the noise from one of these things if they're busting up concrete, which is what we've had at the ZBA in a previous case. But we didn't go beyond a quarter of a mile, so we made that change. And then back on page 18 and 19, we separated landscape waste processing facility from landscape waste compost facility. They both have to fulfill the requirements of the Illinois Administrative Code, but in fact those requirements are more substantial for a compost facility than they are for processing. We know there's a big need in the county for processing all the tree limbs and trees that are cut down. It's just amazing how much of a demand there is for that. And right now our ordinance doesn't really provide for it unless you do it indoors. And we've had some people choose to do it indoors. But anyhow, we wanted to try to make that a little easier within still being reasonable requirements. So we separated those 2 out. And those are the only 2 changes.
Okay, any questions for John? Anything else we see? And again, this is going to be here for 30 days, which is really going to be January, right?
Yeah, it's going to be 60 days.
So it'll be 60 days. So we have time if you think of something later to get to John with. Moving on, and I would entertain a motion to make this an omnibus, unless there's questions about the different ones. We have 3 recreation licenses before us tonight. The first is Taylor Feldkamp for the Demo Derby at the Champaign County Fairgrounds, and this will be in April. The second B is the annual renewal of the license for Hudson Farm Wedding and Events, another business that's been here for a while. And our one and only lonely hotel, the Urbana Motel, doing business as Motel 6 on North Cunningham Avenue that we get every year. So if the board is agreeable, I'd entertain an omnibus motion for 9A, B, and C. Jacob? I was going to give it to you, Mary. Okay. All right, well, you guys can share the rest of the night. Jacob moves, Mary seconds. Any questions for John and Paul about any of these? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Moving on. Item 10A is zoning case 062 AM 22, and this is a request by Anthony Donato by IAG Investments LLC Rantoul, doing business as Donato Solar Rantoul LLC, to amend the zoning map to change the zoning district designation from the Ag 1 zoning district to the Ag 2 zoning district in order to allow a data center as a special use in related zoning case 063S 22, and a PV solar array as a second principal use as a proposed county board special use permit in related case 064S 22 on a 14.77 acre tract in the north half of the southwest quarter of section 10, township 21, north range 9, east of the third principal meridian in Rantoul Township. John, first, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I just, the ZBA found that this met all of the LRMP goals and policies. I think this Ag 2 zoning would actually be a more ideal zoning for this property, even if the development wasn't proposed. So even though there's a condition that this be contingent upon the special use, again, I think Ag 2 is perfect zoning for this property.
Okay, thank you, John. Typically, we go through these things one at a time, but because they're contingent, we always had this debate. Do we just wait to vote on all of these after we go through the other stuff? It's up to the board. We can talk about the map amendment because it's contingent on B. Maybe we want to go ahead and go through B, and then we'll come back to this and work on that. So in Part B of 10, which is zoning case 64S22, this is a request by Anthony Donato by IAG Investments, doing business as Donato Solar Rantoul, to authorize the PV solar array with a total nameplate capacity of 5 megawatt, including access roads and wiring, as a second principal use as a county board special use permit, subject to the rezone to the Ag 2 agricultural zoning district in case 062 AM 22 on the 14-acre .77 tract in the north half of the southwest quarter of 10, Township 21 North, Range 9 East of the third principal meridian in Rantoul Township, including the following waivers of standard conditions. Now, Part A, we do have a decommissioning and site reclamation plan before us, so we can decide whether we want to waive Part A by eliminating it. Part B is a waiver for locating the array less than a half a mile from a municipality, that is Rantoul, and we heard from the petitioner that Rantoul has actually sent a letter saying that they're comfortable with that. Part C is a waiver for locating 235 feet from participating dwelling on a lot more than 10 acres in lieu of the minimum required 255. And we'll ask Anthony later if he has this letter from the owner of the house for the board. Was that submitted? Is that in the documents? John, do you have it?
That was submitted in the public hearing. We did not include that
Okay, but
to
we do
this
have it.
meeting. Yes.
Okay, so that's here. So that may or not be necessary either, actually, in the near future. Part D is the waiver for separation of a distance of 165 feet between the solar inverters and the perimeter fence in lieu of the 275. And then again, we got tonight, we also got an email earlier or late last week, I think, for the decommissioning site reclamation plan and the noise study for that. Maybe we can talk about now. I saw the earlier version of this in the agenda meeting, and then this is the revised one. The numbers have changed a little bit, but not significantly. I think this is where maybe we'll have the most questions about the costs. If you look in the handout tonight, you will see I guess page 21 it starts at. And this shows in red a comparison to the costs from a related solar farm. And this was from 2019, right, I believe? That case.
2018.
18, yes. Case 903 S18. And it shows the differences in the cost there. So, you know, I may have one or two questions about that, but I'll let the board talk first if we'd like. Anthony, if you're free to come back up. I think, let's see if we're going to talk about the decommissioning first, because that'll fundamentally change Part B there and Waiver A. Is there any questions from the board about some of these numbers or where they were sourced from? Chris?
Sure. Seeing that there's such a pretty big difference, I'm curious. It's doubtful that prices have gone down much, in my experience, and I just kind of wonder how, you know, the decommissioning costs are in a special fund, or how is that handled?
You mean the money required to decommission the site? I can't remember exactly what it says. It's a letter of credit backed by a bank, and there are rules about the bank's credit rating. And basically, this is the decommissioning plan estimates those costs, and we're required to have a letter of credit from that bank in place for the life of the project. I can't remember exactly what the requirement is, just because we haven't gotten to that step for the line of credit. So I actually don't have the handout. Susan, do you have an extra copy of the differences page? I just only have a copy of what I submitted, so.
And this letter of credit, Chris, is very similar to the ones we've done with the wind farms before, and they're checked. So, you know, to answer your question, yes, the money is somewhere. Give Anthony a minute there to look at that and see.
All right. Do you want me to kind of just run down the kind of the red numbers, and we can kind of just review them together? Is that?
Maybe if the board would like to hear that, if you've got some corroborating evidence as to why yours are different, that would probably be helpful. I had a couple specific ones, but
Please.
I think people are probably happy to hear all of them if you want to go ahead and start just up
Okay,
at the top.
great. So the state permit stuff, mainly the like stormwater control. We actually are currently doing a site near Bonneville, and they actually are doing a whole floodplain analysis, and that cost right now is at $5,000. And I checked with that engineering firm, which was MSA, and they told me to throw $10,000 in just to be safe. So that's where I got that one. Like I said, I just based it off of it's double what I'm currently paying for an existing location. So removal of security fence, that one, I called a few different demolition people, and they all shot me a price of $200 to $250 per foot, and I raised it a little bit just to kind of give myself a little bit of a buffer. A couple of them asked whether, you know, the post would be in concrete, whether there'd be barbed wire, and you know, so I think that impacts costs in general. And one of the things that we're talking about for a future location is an animal-friendly fence that I think may impact that cost probably lower, because there definitely will not be concrete with, wooden posts and such. So, removal of steel posts, that actually came directly from an existing array that we are building. The company that we hire for the pile driving, because these piles that are put in for the solar array, there's no concrete for them. They're just hammered into the ground. And there was a few of them that they had to change, and that's about the cost per pile that they charged us to. We had like 15 that were in the wrong spot that they had to move. And that was about the cost that it ended up being by the time they pulled those out of the ground and moved them. Removal of PV modules. And I'll address the removal of combiner boxes. Both of those I spoke with our solar installation company, that's BTB Energy. They're the ones who estimated that cost. Again, John has a letter from them, they confirming that they did see these costs, and they do agree that, that's what they would be. So that one is just completely what they said that they estimate the time it would take. So, hauling of PV modules, again, I got I won't say a letter because it's a very rough handwritten note from a truck driver who does most of our hauling currently. So I kind of took the easy road, and it was easy for me just to ask him, but gave him a kind of rundown of what we were doing. He actually told me $750 per ton is a very good quote for whatever we're hauling from Rantoul to Urbana, because most of this stuff is going to be heading to Max Recycling, assuming there's still Max Recycling there. So that's, again, he said $750. I raised it up just to give myself some buffer. So permanent seeding on damaged area. I actually estimated that at 7 acres instead of 12.2, because this site is already going to have natural habitat pollinator plants throughout the entire array anyway, and I don't foresee having to reseed all 12 acres. I think that most of the established pollinator habitat will actually still be just fine, and I don't think it'll be destroyed in decommissioning. With that being said, it's such a small number. I don't have, if we wanted to edit that, I'm just fine with that. So, inverters and transformers, those, again, were based off of BTB Energy, who they do the solar installation. They have another arm, BTB Contracting, who does the electrical side of all of these solar arrays. And they're the ones who, again, estimate it to be, that the stuff would be worth about $500 a piece. If we're to pull it down, assuming things are in working order, without a doubt, anything that we're taking away would be able to be sold for at least $500. I personally thought it was extremely low considering the current market for transformers. One of the transformers that's going to be going in is, I think, like $55,000, and so to think that it's only going to be worth $500 is a pretty substantial difference. So yeah, I think that's all of that stuff. So, and I believe John has copies of those letters from the 3 individuals. I shouldn't say the truck driver's a letter, but anyway, a quote from him. So.
Yeah, and you had said the truck driver quoted you $750, but the note, for what it is, says 10 on this. So.
Correct. Yep. I raised it up just to give a little bit of a buffer.
So is that you wrote that, or he wrote that, or you asked him to write that for you?
The $10 on the decommissioning cost, we put that in. Me and the engineer put that in after speaking with the truck driver.
Okay. So, but this note from Jay.
Oh yeah, you got it.
That's
Yep.
his handwriting at 10.
Yeah, he wrote it after he told me $750, and I said, well, let's just give ourselves some cushion because of gas. He went on a big spiel of,
All right, I was just clarifying that. Is there any questions about any of those numbers from anybody on the board? Chris?
About how long do you think that this will be in operation, or do you have a anticipated life for the project?
I hope forever. I guess I don't know. Solar is a pretty interesting technology that, in 15 years, maybe we decide that we as a people decide that solar isn't actually the way to go, and it makes more sense to be decommissioning them and putting something else back in their place, back to corn, back to beans, whatever it is. So if I had it my way, my son back there will be swapping the panels out for higher grade panels when he's in high school, and then I don't have to, he can deal with it from then on. So that's, in my opinion, it's forever, but the solar panels are rated for 80% of their capacity at 25 years. So meaning 25 years from now, this array should still be producing up to 80% of what it's rated for now. And so I don't see a huge reason that 25 years from now it's going away. So
Anyone else? All right, so the question for the board is, do we accept this decommissioning and the sound study as a reasonable decommissioning study? And in doing that, we can eliminate that first waiver, the Part A waiver. John?
Point of clarification, on Part A, when it says prior to consideration of the special use permit by the board, that really means zoning board. So that, I think it's important for that waiver to stay with this case to document that the zoning board did not review the decommissioning
Okay.
of site reclamation. And the second thing I wanted to point out, given the quality of these PV modules, this DSRP will only need to be reviewed once every 5 years for, I can't recall the term, but for the immediate future, this will be revisited every 5 years. And then at some point that becomes every 2 years when it gets older. So this will not be the last time you see an estimate for decommissioning. And as, recycling of modules becomes easier, maybe, as they becomes a more common practice, some of these prices may go down a lot. Others may go up depending on, how prices go. So that's why this has to be revisited. So please don't think you're locking yourself into this for the next 25 years, because you're not.
Okay, well, with that, as John points out, we leave in Part A, even though we have it, it'll of course go forward to the board with the assurance to the full board that the decommissioning plan is actually on hand. And we can explain at the full board that that was for the benefit of the ZBA, who moved this forward. And again, that was 5-0-2, right? The vote, I think, on Part B, even though they didn't have the decommissioning plan at the time.
I have just a small question.
Jacob?
For a difference this large, is there any insurance policy that we could take, like an umbrella that would cover say that Jay's not in business in 25 years and the actual cost of all these things is a lot different? Is there anything that we could do that protects a bad bid?
Well, of course, you'll have a letter of credit, which will be based on, once every 5 years, you'll get to revisit this estimate to make sure the letter of credit is enough. But ultimately, if the estimates if there's an error in the estimate and the letter of credit isn't large enough, this is all you'll have to work with. The letter of the decommissioning plan says that the owner would still be liable for the amount. It's not clear to me what that means. It could mean that, you might try to make up for any shortage by suing but if they've gone out of business, there's no one to sue. So there is that much risk. You have a letter of credit, but if the estimate ends up being bad, it's just going to be short. Then there's no way to get around that I know of. If you don't have a letter of credit, you could have a bond, but it's still going to be based on an estimate. We're always going to be faced with this problem of how much does it cost to really decommission one of these things?
If I give a bad bid to a homeowner and that it comes back on me for the potential, is it an errors in omission or is it a fraud? Is it, there's insurance for that could we make them carry just to make sure that, 'cause I mean, that's, if it was a small thing, but it's almost double. You know what I mean? In some spots. And some of the percentages of on the differences of what, is quoted and then 25 years from now, that seems like it could become a much larger gap very quickly.
Well, again,
I
you're
know
going
it's
to,
every 5 years, but I mean, even in 5 years, the price on solar panels has gone down dramatically, every year. So as it becomes a more common technology, that's, the decommissioning values, I guess copper and aluminum aren't going anywhere, but some of the more other pieces, it seems risky.
well, just from the experience that we've had so far with the wind farm, which gets reviewed every 3 years, it has surprised me how much the amount changes because the recycling value of copper changes every day. The recycling value of steel actually changes a lot more than I thought. And for the wind farm, it's been very surprising how much more they've had to pony up every time we review the letter of credit. Now, for the wind farm, it's not just a letter of credit, but it's also a, doggone it, they've got money, escrow. There's an escrow account, so we know the money is there. When we adopted the solar farm requirements, the feeling was that solar farms are not as difficult to decommission as wind farms, and so maybe the escrow account isn't necessary. And that's the basis on which this case is proceeding. It's just a letter of credit, that's all it ever has to be, but it is revisited once every 5 years for like the first 25 years, and then more often after that. But if they go out of business, even if they have errors and omissions, I don't know that you could collect on that if they're no longer in business. So I think it's just a feature of this kind of thing. I don't see how you can get around it.
Mary?
So if I'm reading this correctly, the special use permit we're comparing it to was in 2018. So could it be that the person, whatever, I mean, I don't know what solar array this is it's being compared to, but it could be that they just were using different haulers, different, maybe non-local businesses or something, reason why the cost would be so much higher than or estimated to be so much higher?
For sure, they weren't a local company, and I doubt that they used any local prices, although they generally do check in with like the nearest landfill, that they check in for those prices. But yeah, that's one big difference. This is a local company. They have local contacts. Maybe that's part of the reason.
Yeah, and we got from Anthony that a lot of these numbers were direct from comparables that they're working on currently. What we learned with the wind farm many years ago was that it does change, but when the price of doing things goes up, it tends to ride with the salvage or the scrap value of things, which tends to, when things are going well, everything is worth more, including the scrap, copper, and aluminum. And when things aren't going as well, they go down too. So there's the potential that the scrap value may be a lot different in 25 years. The cost would be different, but so would the scrap value. It's all commodities, right? And one hopes that if you invest in commodities, you make money in 25 years. I think these unlike the wind farm, which we know that the current wind farm in Champaign County wants to repower the top of the towers, and they've been up for about 11, 12 years. Solar farms tend to stay static for a lot longer. And again, there's not a lot, I don't know a lot of solar farms that have been taken apart, but a lot of the panels wind up in residential use because they're still 80% and the price is 25% of what they were new. So they tend to go somewhere else. So I'm not as concerned. I think in 5 years we'll find out if we should have been concerned. But right now, there's a low likelihood that you, Anthony, will be decommissioning in the next 5 years. So I think that's, I'm willing to say that this is a reasonable decommissioning plan, and the noise study looks reasonable, and that we can pass this forward to the board with that included. Is there other questions about other parts of this? Do you have I think we already talked about the letter about the dwelling. You had that? I asked this already, didn't I?
You asked, and I've been checking through the documents of record, and for some reason, I'm not finding it. I thought we had that, Susan.
Okay, so Susan, I'll go with Susan because I trust Susan. So you're welcome,
Good choice.
anytime. And then you said that the separation distance for the inverters and stuff, that property is, you moved things to the noisier part of the property, if I understood you correctly?
So we kept the inverters near the land that we bought was formerly part of I think 20-acre parcel. And we bought 15 acres, left 5 acres. And our inverters are closest to the 5-acre section, which is a piece of land that's currently being used as a trucking business. And again, buying this land from the former owner, they knew what the plans were. They were expecting it. Keeping the inverters in this location kind of benefited us in a couple different ways. One of which, we have easements with that property owner to access all of our equipment, and it allowed us to not have to disturb as much current ground because we're able to use their existing driveway and parking lot, having the inverters a little bit closer. If we took them all the way 275 feet from that property line, it's more driveway, more rock in that land, and I just, to me, I just rather keep as much of the dirt and get it, back to the pollinator habitat, and that way we don't have to struggle with that as much. So
So you have some sort of tacit agreement with this company to give you easement access?
Correct. Yep, we do have a easement from them, a permanent easement on a section of their property for permanent access, and a wider, larger construction access through a larger part of their property. So, and again, I think probably a letter with the exhibit is somewhere. So.
Okay, very good. Right, I don't have any more questions. Does anyone else? Aaron? Chris?
I was looking at the state permits on page 21, and you've got 10,000, and then in red says 19. What accounts for the big difference?
I have no clue. That was the first, I guess, item I addressed. We're currently working with the city of Bonneville, Village of Bonneville, to get an array and a commercial development there, and all of the stormwater and floodplain mitigation is being done by MSA, and that cost right now is $5,000. And I asked them about this specific thing, and they said put $10,000, and that's a safe number. So
Thanks. Yeah, just a few comments, I guess. Before it was a trucking company, I know it was I can't think of the farm name, but it was a fairly, yes, that's right, Spiros. Large farm operation there. So it wasn't maybe consistently, you could say, maybe as noisy and as active, because with farming being more seasonal than a trucking company, that if they're doing business, they're going to be, year round. But there was noise there anyway, at least seasonally. And you say the house across the street, nobody's living in it, correct? And I know it is an older house. I mean, I don't know the shape of it or anything, but the owner of it isn't living there and says that he has no problem. So, yeah, the idea that the inverters and stuff being out closer to the road than what we would maybe normally want, and the idea that you've got a permanent easement and stuff, that sounds pretty good to me. So that sounds like a good solution and good to the, I guess maybe there's not really a problem, but it sounds reasonable to me to do it the way you've proposed.
And just to be clear, I don't know if you guys got a copy of the site plan. Where the inverters are located, they're actually, I would say, about 700 feet from the property line, which is about 800 feet from that nearest residence. The issue is it's kind of an odd-shaped parcel, and so it's closer to the trucking company's parcel than the regulation, the ordinance actually says it should be. So that's kind of the issue. Additionally, in the noise study, where we actually have the inverters, because of their location, they're actually able to, the sound from them gets stopped with, we have, I guess I'll call them sound deadening walls around them, but also the buildings on the trucking company's property also help deaden all that noise more by the time you get to the property line. So the street, I should say. So.
That, just thinking, since Susan is here, Susan, is there anything that you still maybe see as even if it's just a small red flag? I mean, personally, not saying that John hasn't expressed anything, but since you're here, just in your own mind, that would even be the tiniest red flag as to why shouldn't maybe approve it. Or just a quick something that maybe needs to be addressed.
I really can't think of anything at this point. I think they've covered their bases well, and they've been responsive to our questions about this property and also about the project. I think that the Village of Rantoul, which is pretty much adjacent to it, has been very supportive of their doing this. So I don't have any red flags at this point.
All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, let's walk through these, A, B, and C then. I'd entertain a motion to approve 10A, the zoning case 062 AM 22. Motion by Mary, second by Jacob. You guys are in charge tonight, you understand that, right? Without further ado, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Okay, Part B, the zoning case 064S22, which, again, we've talked about, and we're going to include all 4 of the waivers based on John's input. And sorry, Susan, but I'm not going to also ask you. We're going to let John fly on this one. So I'd entertain a motion to approve that. Kyle and Aaron is the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that passes. And moving forward, the decommissioning and site reclamation plan, Part C, for zoning case 064S22. Entertain a motion for that. Kyle and Jacob. And all those in favor? Aye. And those opposed? All right, very good. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, everyone who came. For that, your part of the meeting is done. So, and ours is almost done. Other business, the monthly reports from June. Anything you want to remark about those, John? Or
No. Just,
okay.
I think the zoning compliance certificates were not at what has been their typical high level. but that's not because we weren't doing anything. It's just that we weren't focusing on zoning compliance in June.
Okay, very good. I have no chair's report other than to again thank Mary and Jacob for your years of service here on ELOC. And once again say that both of your voices will be missed here. Designation of items to be placed on consent. I have item 10, A, B, and C. So unless the board doesn't want those on consent, we can always pull them in the meeting, but if you guys don't want them on consent, we can leave them off, so it can be discussed at the full board meeting. You want to keep them off, Chris? Microphone?
Is it, thank you.
9 is,
Nine.
that's just ELOC, so. We're in charge of that stuff. We're the boss. So. I learned that lesson a while ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. So, well, for now, we'll leave it on consent then. Is it good with you, Jacob? Yeah, I think so. And again, we can pull it off. If you want it off in the board meeting, just say so when we get to consent. Yeah. Yeah.
All it
just
takes
take
is one person, our board rules say one person has to pull it off. It can be pulled off, so, I mean,
Okay.
that part of our board rules makes it easy to pull it off, so should something come up.
All right, so for now, we'll leave it there, and if, if we suddenly find out that the trucking company's no longer in business or something, we'll pull it off the consent agenda, and we'll have Anthony answer questions again. So, I don't want to keep anyone from their Frosty any longer, so it is 7:25, and I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.